This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so what we were doing the other day, or what we were doing the last week, is that we started off with ARM templates and we said what an ARM template really is. And we said, how can you develop an ARM template from something known as a JSON format? Then we said, okay, fine, ARM template is good, but what if you want to create multiple resources of the same kind, or let's say multiple resources in a different way? Then you use a function which is called copy index. So copy index is a function that you generally use, or generally basically comes into picture when you want to create resources of, let's say, create multiple resources of the same kind, or create multiple resources of different kinds, and etc. And we said, how do you do a very simple copy, and how do you do like an advanced copy, where we said, okay, fine, we want to declare a few properties, and then we want to do a copy index over those properties. And we seen, okay, fine, how do you basically go ahead and create resources in a resource group, and etc. That's where we are. And in today's session, what we're going to do is that till now, we have been dealing with something known as main.json file. Now, until now, whatever JSON file that we were writing on, or whatever ARM template that we are writing on, this file, sorry, this file is called a main.json, meaning the file that holds, or the file that is responsible to go ahead and create your resources. There is also another file which is called parameters.json. So one is a main.json, the other is a parameters.json. So we normally call this as a parameter file. So why is this used? Is that, let's imagine that you have hundreds of parameters that you need to pass. So let's say you're creating a lot of resources in a single template. And what is happening right now is that the same template is being reused for a lot of teams. Okay, so since it's a template, I would say, okay, fine, I would want one template and I want to reuse it, right? So there are dev, there is QA, there is DevOps teams, and etc. And each and every team, needs, let's say, resources in different SKUs, meaning storage accounts in different SKUs, different location, different names, and they also want to basically provision them in different resource groups as well. Until now, whatever we have creating, we are only provisioning it in one particular resource group. But I am now telling that, okay, fine, I need three different resource groups with three different names, and let's say with three different storage accounts with three different SKUs and etc. So this is what I'm right now talking about. So that is where parameters, or that's where a parameter file comes in to help you. So how do you create this parameter file? What is this parameter file all about? Let's look at that. So I will initially start off again with, in order to start writing an ARM template, I would say ARM and then exclamation in order to give me a skeleton. I have a skeleton right now, and this has a couple of things like parameters, functions, and etc. So I'll start off with my resources, and I will begin with a simple resource known as a storage account. I'll say ARM, then hyphen, and this will take some time in order to load things out. So what I'm going to do right now is that I'll just create a storage account and I will parameterize all the values. So how do we parameterize again? Anyone, guys? How do we declare parameters? Can Sorry. So I have name, I have location, and I have a SKU. I want to parameterize all these three things. So how do I do that? How do I end up doing that? Can anyone answer that? Right, we have to do that in a parameters block. And how can I call the parameter in the resource block? Parameters, and then refer it to the parameter, right? So let's give it a second. Normally, ARM templates take about, like, 5 minutes or something like that to load this out. Let's see if I already have a ARM template that I can reuse. Okay, so I have an ARM template. So let's remove this out. say don't save. Now this is a very simple template out here. It has a couple of parameters called storage account name, and it says this is the metadata, and it also has something on a storage account name too, which I don't need at this point. So I'm just removing this particular name. I just need one particular storage account, location, and you have something known as a default value in ECS2, allowed values in these three locations out here. And then you have an SKU name, standard LRS and standard GRS are the allowed values out here. Then I have I have declared a kind in the variables. So I want this particular variable to be static in nature. Okay. Then I said, okay, fine. I am creating, okay, let's delete this storage account. I don't need this. So I have removed a storage account. Now all I'm doing is just one storage account creation. And in the storage account, while I'm creating it, I am saying the name comes from the parameters. Location also comes from the parameters. Kind comes from, let's say, variables. And then you have a name. And I said, okay, fine, this is parameters SKU name. So the replication tier, everything basically is coming from the parameters right now. So what we did the other day is, let's say if you want to deploy this template, what I initially did is that I basically did a CD into this particular folder. So let's do a CD here. And once I'm inside this folder, command is used to deploy an ARM template into an Azure resource group, guys. Which command is used to deploy that? New hyphen AZ resource group deployment. So for that, I need to have a resource group, right? So let's go ahead and look at what my portal really has. So I don't have any resource group to begin with. So firstly, what I'll do is that I'll create a resource group. So I'll say RG name is equal to test RG. I'm just creating a resource group out here, and I'm saying new hyphen. What should be the command here, guys? AZ resource group hyphen. The name of the resource group is nothing but $RG name, and then the location of the resource group. And then once I execute this out, okay, it says invalid. Okay, fine. And once I execute it out, it should be able to basically go ahead and create me a resource group with the name what? Test RG in a location called what? ECS2 out here. So I'm good right now with the resource group creation. Now what I'll do is I'll say new hyphen AZ resource group deployment, name of the deployment, something like storage, and resource group name is something like test RG. This is the RG basically that I want to deploy my resources into. Finally, I'll say template file, and I'll say, okay, fine, I'm in the same folder. So it is dot backslash storage arm.json. Now, if you look at my template file, right, I have parameterized all these things out, location, and I parameterized this queue and etc. But did I pass a default value to this particular storage account name? No, so I have to pass it somewhere, right? So what I'll be doing is that then how do I pass it to this command? Can anyone help me out with that? So I'm doing a new hyphen AZ resource group deployment, and I am calling that particular ARM template. Now, how do I pass a parameter called storage account name to this particular command? Sorry. Okay, hyphen storage account hyphen storage account name. Now let's say that this template doesn't have default values for the location or for the SKU. So I'm not giving default values anywhere. I'm leaving it up to the user right now in order to decide what is the value basically he wants to pass it. So if I do that, then I have to give the name of the storage account. For example, let's say the name of the storage account is store ABC USEs2. Then you have parameters like location. So then you have something like SKU and the standard LRS. And then once I execute this, sorry, once I execute this command will reach out to that particular ARM template and then deploy that particular ARM template into the Azure portal, right? This is what it has to do. But these are just three parameters. What if they are 30? What if they are 300? Then it's very difficult for me to pass everything in this command line, right? It's very difficult for me to even remember what parameters I have passed, even remember what is the allowed value and etc. So for the ease of convenience out here, what Microsoft did is that it's giving you something known as a parameter file. As we started our discussion with something known as a parameter file out here. So how do I now create a parameter file out here is that I'll say select. So do you see this message called select or create a parameter file to enable full validation? So what I'll do is I'll say select this parameter file and it says, okay, fine. Please select a parameter file that can accompany the storage arm.json. The storage arm.json is the main file that I'm working on. So I'll say, okay, fine, new parameter. And I'll say, please include all the parameters here. And now it's telling me, okay, fine. Can you please tell me what is the name of your parameter file? I'll say this is for a development team that I'm creating. It is dev parameters.json. Dev.parameters.json. That's the extension. I'll say save. As and when I do that, I now have a parameter file that got created. So this is the main file. This is the main file, which is a .json file. This is a .parameters.json file. This is the extension of it. And now I'm coming here and it has a couple of comments. So I'll just remove this out. And now I'll say, since this is a development team, I'll say it is dev storacc abc000 US East 2 because I'm creating it in a region known as US East 2. So I'll say the location here is East US 2. And I'll say the SKU name out here is standard underscore LRS. And I'll then save this file out. As in when I save this file out, I go here. Do you see how it's calling the values right now? It's telling the value right now is dev something, which is being taken from a parameter file, which is called dev.parameters.json, right? So it's telling, okay, fine, this is the value what it is taking. You can also change this parameter file. And then it's telling, okay, fine, the location is east2 and I am also getting this particular location from this particular parameter file. So what I did is that I had a main file. I had a main file. I am now accompanying this main file with multiple parameter files. So right now I have one parameter file for the development team and I'm calling it as dev.parameters.json. I can have a similar parameter file for QA team, which I can call as qa.parameters.json. Then I can have one file for the DevOps team. So the number of teams that you can have the number of parameter files. There is no restriction about it. Then how do you basically use this parameter file? Is that if I go to the portal now, there are two ways you can do it with PowerShell or you can do it with the Azure portal out there. I'll say deploy a custom template. And as and when this opens, I'll say build your own template. I'll say, okay, fine, load a file. And in here, I'll just go into, let's say the Azure, let's say the resource group, sorry, the folder where I'm into. And I'll say, okay, fine, this is storage arm.json. So I have added this file. I'll say save. Now there is something known as edit parameter. Now there are two things: edit template, and template meaning the main file, and you have something known as edit parameters, which is the parameter.json file. So what I can do out here, I'll say edit parameters and it'll give me this particular value. I can just take this file, copy and paste it out here. Or I can also do a load file. Do you see the load file option here? I can also say load file and I'll say this is dev.parameters. I can say save. As and when I do that save, right? Now it's picking up those values from here. It's saying, okay, fine, region. So I'll have to choose a different region out here. I'll say it is East US2 and this is the region for the resource group as such. Okay. Then I'll say, okay, fine. Whether it can be test RG, but in my case, it's a development environment, right? So I'll say it is dev RG. Okay. And right now, if I click on East US2, right? I only have East US2, Central US, and North Europe. Why is this, guys? Can anyone tell me? Allowed values. So since I've only allowed these three locations, it's just giving me these three values out here. And finally, here, it's just giving me LRS and GRS. And I can say review and create. It's running the final validation, and I can basically go ahead and create this resource out inside, let's say, the dev RG. Now, once the QA team is coming up right now to me, and the QA team is telling that we need something similar, but the location should be North Europe or Central US rather, and the SKU should be GRS, and it should be in a different resource group again. So what I'll do is that I'll say, okay, fine, this is the configuration value what the development team has asked. This is what all the configuration what the development team is asking me. Now what I can do is I can say, okay, fine, I can click on change this parameter file and I can say create a new parameter file for me. And I'll say, okay, fine, please include all the parameters out here. And I'll say this is qa.parameters.json or just qa.parameters is okay because .json will in which ways get appended. So I have another file right now that's got created and I can remove these values out here. So we'll have to just remove all these comments. And then now we can pass the values here. Something like UASTU or ABC 000 CUS Central US and location value. I'll have to pick up from one of these locations out here. I can say it is Central US. And finally, I can say it is standard underscore GRS. And right now, if you look at this, the values are being picked up from this particular file out here. Let's see if there is an issue here. I'll say, okay, fine. It's fine. You will get some errors here, but it's okay. Let's see, location is Central US. And now you have the values being picked up from this particular file out here. It's saying, okay, fine. The value right now is what? QA store AB 00 something like this. And the value here is Central US. And then you have standard GRS out here. Now, how do I deploy this again? Now we've seen the portal. Let's look at PowerShell right now. Now I need a resource group with the name called QA-RG. This should be in something like Central US location. So once I'll basically go ahead and let's say run these two commands and I'll create the I'll create a resource group known as QA-RG. And once it's done, I'll say, okay, fine, the template name is this. Now let me take this out. Now what we have done is that we made sure to pass all the values that we parameterized to this particular command, right? I won't do that anymore right now. I'll say hyphen template file is dot backslash storage arm.json. Give a space, say hyphen, template parameter file. This is, let's say, now the parameter that I'm using, and I'm saying the parameter file right now is what? qa.parameters.json. And one final thing I'll say, it's not test.rg, but it is a qa-rg. And now I can execute this particular file. Now it won't ask me to pass in the parameters here. Rather, it is going into the parameter file, picking up all the values and telling, okay, fine, this is the parameter file that you have. Now please go ahead and let's say declare all these values out here. So this is how it is now acting, or this is how it is now behaving out here. Okay, any questions still here, guys, on what parameter file is, how do we use it, or what is the advantage of parameter file and etc. Any questions that I can take, guys? Yes. No, you cannot do that. Parameter file is just like a key value pair. It's a very simple file. It doesn't have a validation and etc. So it's a very simple file out there. So whatever value that you're giving in, let's say in your main file, is expected for you to pass in, let's say the parameter file out there. Values, that's it. It's just key value pair. So I'm not entering any values in my main file. I'm not declaring any actual values in my main file. Now, now you see, if you see here, right, this template is still throwing some error. It's telling that you know what, you have an error and etc. This is expected, like it'll just say that there is an error, and it's telling me that you know what, there's an error out here, but it'll take some time in order to resolve this out. But when I deploy this template, there is no error whatsoever that I'm getting, which means that the template is working all right. Okay, any questions here, guys? Anything here? Any questions, guys? Anything that I can take? So what's a parameter file, what's the advantage of parameter file, and how do you declare a parameter file, how do you create a parameter file, and etc. Anything? I can also say just create a new parameter file like DevOps. So same procedure again. I'll say all, please include all the parameters out here. I'll just take the storage ARM and I'll say DevOps parameters.json, and I can give the default values for the DevOps team as well. I'll say this DevOps store ABC000 US East 2. Location is something like Central US or East US 2. Finally, I can say the SKU name is standard underscore LRS. Save it out. Now, if you look at this, all the values are now getting changed. It's saying, okay, fine, I'm taking the DevOps values out here and etc. Now, any questions before I move ahead, guys? Any questions here before I move ahead? Anyone, anything, online, offline, anything, guys?
So
So
if
are you
you
all
all,
able to follow? Sorry.
yeah, if it is already storage account is there, we need to
Hmm.
be validate right, this thing.
I'm sorry, I didn't get a question. Can you come again?
Yeah, if it is storage account already there, okay,
Hmm.
someone is asking.
Yeah, please go ahead. The storage account is already there, so
Yeah, we need to be warning when it is already
no, it,
like,
it won't be warning. As I said the other day, it's an incremental deployment.
okay.
ARM template acts in an incremental deployment. So if the storage account is already there, it'll just validate the property and it'll just execute, and it'll tell, okay, fine, the storage account is already there and I don't have to do anything. This is what it's going to do. So how do I develop, let's say, an end-to-end program which is using this particular parameter file and helping me out to deploy something out? How do I do that? Like I want to now write an end-to-end PowerShell script which will take in, or which will take in account, let's say, the parameter files that are out there, and based upon the user input, either the user is a developer or a QA or a DevOps, it has to automatically pick up the parameter file and then do a deployment into the Azure portal. This is what is my requirement right now, meaning I just need to develop a PowerShell script, or I just need to develop a program right now, which will first take in, or which will understand which team a user belongs to. Let's say either a development team, either a QA or a DevOps team. And based upon that, it will first check whether the dev-rg is existing or the QA-rg is existing, or let's say the DevOps-rg is existing. And then if it's not existing, it should create a resource group. After creating a resource group, it should take the main file. So there is only one main file, right? There's one main file, but there are three different parameter files. Based upon whether the user is developer, or whether the user is QA, or whether he is a DevOps engineer, sorry, whether they're a DevOps engineer, it should pick up the particular parameter file. Meaning, if someone enters that they're a developer, like dev, it should pick up the dev.parameters.json. Should pick up this file. If they say they are not a developer, they say something like they are a QA, should pick up qa.parameters.json. And if they're a DevOps engineer, it should pick up the devops.parameter.json and then do a deployment, and then do an ARM template deployment. So how do I script this out, or how do I do this out? Is let's do this. Let's do an end-to-end scripting right now. So what will I require here, guys? Okay, we need parameters. Okay, let's do parameters. Yes, definitely. So firstly, I'll declare whatever the RG names are. I'll say dev RG is equal to dev hyphen RG, and I'll say QA RG is equal to QA hyphen RG, and DevOps RG is DevOps hyphen RG. So I'm declaring three parameters to begin with, where I'm giving the names of the resource groups. I'm just executing this, and I'm saying, okay, fine, dev RG is equal to something like this, QA RG is equal to something like this, DevOps RG is equal to something like this. Now, the very first thing that I'll have to see if whether the resource group is existing or not, right? If it doesn't, then please go ahead and create one. If it is, then please tell me that the resource group already exists, not creating one. So I'll say RG status. And I'll say, okay, fine. Now there are three different RGs. So how do I really approach this out? There are like three different RGs out here. That's the issue right now. Okay. I can do a for each loop over it.
But
But I don't want to go over all the three resource groups and see whether they're existing and created. I just want to see based upon the user input. Let's say if I'm a DevOps engineer, it should only say, sorry, yeah, we can take a user input, but I don't expect the user to know the resource group name. I don't expect the user to know a resource group name. So let's see this. Bind a string, right? So we can bind that one. So what I'll do is that I'll say team. Okay, this is my, or this is, let's say, the key indicator on which team the developer belongs to, and etc. Right? Or which team the user belongs to. So what I'll say is team is equal to read hyphen host. I'm expecting the user to give an input out here. I'm telling please enter the team you belong to. And I'll say just give an accepted array telling it is dev. or QA or DevOps. This is what I'm entering right now. Based upon this, I'll say $RG name is equal to $team plus hyphen plus RG. Now what will happen here is, let's do a write host firstly. I'll say name of the RG is what? $RG name. Now what will happen here is, let's see this. Now it's telling please enter the team name. I'll say it is dev. Now you get what? Dev hyphen RG. If I execute the program again and pass in something like QA. Now it's saying fine, okay, fine, please enter the name of the team. I'll say QA hyphen RG, right? This is what I'm getting right now. Is everyone understanding what I'm doing right now, guys? I'll say great, since I got the name of the RG right now. I will now do one thing. I will say, okay, fine. Now I'll check for the RG status. I'll say, how do I check for the, let's say whether the RG exists or not, guys? What is the command here? Get, right? So it's a get hyphen easy resource group hyphen name of the resource group. What should be the name of the resource group here, guys? $RG name. RG name. Finally, I'll say error action. I'll say silently continue. Now I'm saying if RG status is equal to $null, then what should be the command here, guys? If RG status is null, to create a new one. So it's like, I'll say write hyphen host RG with the name $RG name doesn't exist. Creating one. Then I'll say new hyphen easy resource group. Name of the resource group is $RG name hyphen location is something like East US 2. So I want all my resource groups to be in East US, so that's fine. So I'm just hard coding a location out here. Else to say write host RG with the name already exists. Say skipping creation. This is what my program is right now doing. So let's see this. Now it's saying, okay, fine, please give a name of a team. I'll say dev. It's saying dev RG. Saying what? Name of the RG already exists, it's skipping a creation. So because I have a dev RG out here and I also have a QA RG out here. So I have a dev, a QA RG. So let's try DevOps to see if our program is like really working, if it's ending up creating an RG and etc. So again, I'm just executing my program. Now I'll say it is DevOps. Saying name doesn't exist. It's creating one right now and will end up creating an RG right now. And this is what is the logic what I want to implement out here. Now this is for resource group. So first it's checking the resource group, seeing whether it's there or not. The second thing is that based upon the team, it has to deploy the main file and also has to deploy the parameter file. This is what it has to do. So how can I write a logic for this, guys? What can be, let's say, or how can be my approach here? Dot parameters dot JSON, right? That's what I'm going to do right now. I'll just capture that particular variable known as the dollar team. Dollar team will give me what? Dev, QA, or DevOps based upon the input. I can add it to what? Dot parameters dot JSON, dot QA dot parameters dot JSON, etc. So what I'll do is I'll say I'll have a value known as dollar parameter file name, and I will say that the name of the parameter file is a dollar team plus what parameters metrs dot JSON. This is what is the name of the parameter file, and the name of the main file, right, is always constant. I'll say main file name is equal to, well, let's see what is the name of the file. It's storage arm.json. So I'll say it is storage arm.json. This is the name of my main file. This is always constant. This doesn't change, but the parameter needs to change each and every time depending upon what the user is inputting. I'll say now write host name of the parameter file being used is dollar parameter file name. This is what I'm doing right now. Now, first thing it's asking for the user input. So I'll say it is DevOps. Checking the name of the resource group is existing or not. Then it's saying, okay, fine. Name of the parameter file that is being used is what? DevOps.parameters.json. This is what it is right now talking about. Let's do a CLS. And finally, now what might happen is that sometimes this particular parameter file might not be there. Right? In that case, it should throw an error, right? It should beforehand, it should basically tell that the parameter file doesn't exist. So how do I do that? Is I need to test whether that particular file is there or not. So let's do this. Let's say file status, and let's say I'll have a command known as test hyphen path. I'm testing whether that particular file is there in that particular path or not, and I'll say hyphen path, and I'll say dot backslash. So I can give this. I can say dot backslash and say dollar parameter file name. So this is what is the file name, right? So instead of passing that entire file as such, I'm just giving a dot forward slash for that particular parameter file path out there, or that particular parameter file name out there. And now if you just execute this, it'll say, okay, fine, let's see dev. And it did not give any error out here. If the file wasn't there, it would have thrown an error. It would have thrown an error telling that, okay, fine, this is what it is, but I need a custom error. So what I'll do out here is I'll say error action is again silently continue. And if I'll say if dollar file status is equal to null, I'll say write, what should I do here? Write host. Anyone, guys? If this particular file status is equal to null, what does that mean? There is no parameter file in that particular path. So if there is no parameter file, what should my script do here? No, it doesn't create a new one. It should throw an error out here, and the script should break, telling that, okay, fine, you know what, that particular parameter file doesn't exist. Because if I have to create a parameter file there, then I have to take the user input for, let's say, the name and etc. and I have to create a new JSON file. which I don't want to do in this particular script. So I'll say it is write host firstly, no parameter file with the name or parameter file name found in the path. Finally, I'll say write error. I'll say exiting the script. And finally, I'll give something known as an exit command out here. I'll say exit 1. So please exit out here. Don't go further. If you don't find a parameter file with that name, throw an error and don't go any further. Just break out here. That's it. This is what I'm right now telling my script to, or this is how I'm telling my script to work. Okay. Finally, I will say once everything is done, I'll now want to create the resources, right? Using ARM templates. I'll say write host, find the ARM template. And I want to now give out a couple of informations like what is the team name, what is the RG that I'm deploying it out here, and what is the main file, what is the parameter file that is being used. So what I'll do is that I'll just have a line separator out here. I'll say write host team is dollar team. It's a development team or it's a QA team or it's a DevOps team. Let's say team is, let's say, dollar team. I'll say RG used is what should be the name of the RG here, guys? RG name. I'll say RG name. I'll say write host parameter file. It's dollar parameter file name. And once I print out all this information, now I'll say I'll use the command to deploy the ARM template. I'll say new hyphen AZ resource group deployment hyphen the name of the deployment is something like storage parameters. Resource group name, what should be the name of the resource group, guys? Dollar RG name. And then I would say the template file. And what should be the path of the template file here? Anyone? Dollar name file. I'll say it is, since I'm working in the same path, I'll say dot backslash dollar main file name. Finally, I'll give a parameter file name here. I'll say dollar backslash whatever was my parameter file that I created here. Parameter file name. This is how my script logic really should kind of work. And let's see if it is working or not. So let's save this out. I'll say ARM template deployment PS1, and now I'll say execute my script. And now it's asking me which team do I belong to. I'll say dev. It's saying firstly it's checking for the name of the RG. Now it's saying okay fine, cannot retrieve the dynamic parameters. Okay, now it's telling me an error, telling me that okay fine, yeah, I'm not able to get this particular parameter, so it's not able to resolve this particular name. So let's see what's going wrong there. So it's not able to resolve this particular name out here. It's able to append this one out. Dollar. So that's what it said. It's saying, okay, fine, ARM template deployment doesn't exist. Couldn't find this path. So, but it's breaking at this particular name known as main file. Let's see if I haven't passed the right value here. See, main file name is something like this. Okay, let's try one more time and see if it's working. Yep. So it's not able to resolve this particular name. So I need something to resolve this out. Let's see this. Let's see. So I have a parameter file name, and let's see if this is able to resolve this out. It's able to get the path here, but not here. It sometimes also matters how you're passing the quotes. So when I'm passing a single quote, it's not able to get that particular, or it's not able to resolve that variable. So what we do normally as a best practice is whenever you're declaring a variable, just pass it in a double quote. If it's right host, single quote, double quote, anything's okay. But when you're passing path and etc., right, make sure you're passing it in a double quote so that the variable can be resolved. Okay, a single quote may not resolve your variable. So that's what was the error that was happening here. When I passed my main file and etc. in a single quote, it's not able to resolve that particular variable. I save this, and now when I execute this out, and let's say I give QA, throwing an error, and the error is telling me that, you know what, I am not able to retrieve the dynamic parameters for this particular commandlet, and I'm not able to find this particular path. And the path, if you look at this, guys, see how the path is going. It's saying H file handling, and it's unable to understand what is this. It's taking, okay, fine, it is a dollar file name. It's not able to get the value of this. The reason being is that it's not able to resolve this particular variable. It's telling, okay, fine, this is a single quote, so it might be a string. It may not be a variable. As and when I pass it in double quotes, it's when it was able to resolve those variables out to the actual value. So let's execute this one more time, and I'll say QA. Now it's telling QA RG, and now it's telling this is, let's say, the team QA. The RG, the RG being used is QA-RG. The parameter file is qa.parameters.json, and now it's doing an ARM template deployment. And finally, it'll tell, okay, fine, I'm deploying the template right now, and it will at the end, it'll tell, okay, fine, this is what I have deployed. The same applies to DevOps also. So it's saying, okay, fine, these are the parameters, and this is the name: QA store ABC Central US standard standard GR standard LRS and everything. So this is how I have like deployed the template out. Any questions with this, guys? Any questions here? Is everyone able to follow, or did anyone not follow the script what we have written? Any questions, guys? Anything here? Now going forward, I'll also upload these scripts into, let's say, the repository that I was talking about, so that you can download these scripts and have this as a reference. on what can be done and etc. So any questions here, guys? Anything here?
Kiran, I have a question. Where did you change the double quote and the single quote in the program?
Here, this is where I change the double quote and single quote
Okay,
in
main frame.
order to take this. Yes,
So previously it was a single quote, right?
correct.
Okay, okay, cool. Thanks, Kiran.
So this is only being done for the variable to be result. And since I have extra characters there, I need to basically pass it, let's say, in a double quote. Any questions, guys? Anything? And guys, from tomorrow we are going to really look at most important topics of, let's say, of any cloud, which is called networking, because networks, networking, and etc. kind of becomes a backbone to any cloud provider. So please make sure that you kind of come to the class on time. And if you do not understand or if you do not follow anything, please do ask me. I'll make sure to clear this out. But before just coming, just try to read a bit of documentation and let me know what you understand by something known as virtual networks in Azure. Just do this. You have something known as Azure Virtual Network, and you have a documentation on what a virtual network is and etc. So just try to follow this documentation. It'll take like about 5 or 6 minutes to read this page. Just read this page. Don't go anywhere. Just read this page and understand, or just try to follow this along and let me know what do you understand by this. Okay. Okay. If there are no further questions, guys, we're good to close the session today. Thank you, guys. Have a great day ahead.